Why did the chef stop cooking?
Why?
Because he ran out of time.
I should have seen that one coming.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Squared podcast where the brain and belly meet. I'm Sharon from the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Winter from theredparty.com. This week we are talking about infusions and sous vide with our special guest, Jason Logsdon.
Yay!
We're so excited.
Hungry Squared, yeah, Hungry Squared.
Sharon, how's your week been? What'd you eat this week that was awesome or not awesome?
It's peach season.
Oh, yes.
And I tried to recreate, and they were really good. I just need to tweak them a little bit more. Peach bombs.
Oh, what are those?
So it's a whole peach, and it's wrapped in dough, and it's cooked in the oven. And it turns into this sweet, delectable, flaky pastry yumminess.
Okay, wait a second. Let's talk about the peach inside. Have you
Yes, I have
skinned it?
Yes, I have de-skinned and removed the
De-pitted?
pit. De-pitted?
I don't know if that's a word or not, but we just made
We've
it up.
done some pit removal.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we're putting in, so this time I did some maple syrup and butter in the hole.
Really?
Yeah. And then wrapped it in crescent dough roll
Okay.
and then cooked it. And it's almost good. I need some more caramelization in the middle. So next time I'm going to be doing some brown sugar, I think.
That sounds amazing. And then do you just, when it comes out, just to serve it with like a scoop of vanilla ice cream or something?
Or just eat it.
Oh, okay.
But the vanilla ice cream or some type of like a hand-whipped whipped cream would be nice.
Do all of the juices stay within the dough?
If you seal it up correctly.
Oh, okay.
So you've got to be really careful because I used like the actual like Pillsbury crescent dough roll. So I just like popped a can and then kind of made them into squares, slapped them together.
Gotcha. So that it was a little bit more of a sheet in a sense.
Yes. So, and you can buy that dough in sheets, or you could use like some phyllo dough or whatever, but I was feeling cheap and it worked for my
worked for your needs.
Yeah.
That sounds really tasty.
It was super good.
Because peaches are delightful right now.
Yes.
They're so tasty.
And cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got them for like 60 something cents for a pound.
Buy yourself a peach, people.
Yes. Do it. You won't regret it.
Yeah, it's so true. So true.
What did you eat this week?
Oh, so we went to a concert this week, an outdoor concert. It's kind of the last ditch summer concert, outdoor concert.
Yeah.
And we had a picnic, right? That's what you do. You bring a picnic with
outdoor
yourself.
Summer concerts.
You
Yes.
just bring a picnic with you. So we had kind of open face sandwiches. We had some creminelli, some of their sliced charcuterie,
Yum.
and cheese with some Dijon mustard. I love me some Dijon mustard. So it was really simple and easy to pack with us. The other thing that Lee made was this pasta salad. And I don't know the name of this pasta.
Oh, okay.
It kind of looks like a shell, but I don't know. It looks like a little mini helmet.
Oh.
Like an army helmet. I don't know.
Oh, I've seen those before. Yeah.
It just looks
I don't know what it is.
If anybody knows what that's called, Lee threw away the packaging, so I couldn't look it up. So, but yes, that's, he made this tomato, basil, Parmesan cheese with balsamic salad with this pasta in it.
So it was like cold pasta salad.
Yep. Mm-hmm, and it was so good.
Yum.
Of course, the balsamic, we use the private selection version, and I don't know, I like it because it's sweeter.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a sweet tooth, and it just made it really a perfect little salad that we could take with us and just eat. And we polished it straightway off.
Nice.
And then we had some plums for dessert. And once again,
you guys had a full gourmet picnic.
Yeah. Well,
here.
You got to be able to. That's the tricky thing. You got to be able to pack something light-ish, right? I mean.
Oh yeah.
And that you can assemble or eat pretty quickly. You're not going to be bringing like a roast or anything.
Sure.
Well, I guess some people do, but
we're not those people.
Yeah. So I'm like, open face sandwiches and a little pasta salad. It was pretty good for us. And a stone fruit for dessert. We'll take it.
Nice.
It was really nice. It was just all the good stuff and the good music and just perfect weather. It's not too hot anymore. And it was awesome.
Good job.
It's perfect.
And now for the main course.
Okay, let's get down to our topic at hand, infusions. We're with Jason Logsdon of Amazing Food Made Easy.
Woohoo! Hey, Jason, how's it going?
Doing really good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited. I just want to tell our audience members, we are really grateful that we met Jason. We actually found him at a conference. We kind of Twitter stalked him. And thankfully, he was nice enough to meet us somewhere to chat about kind of food gastronomy and some of these kind of fun techniques that he is way into and has written books about.
So cool. Our friend Michelle from thebrooklyncook.com told us all about Jason when she attended his class that we
totally missed.
I
don't even know how we
shouldn't
did.
have missed it.
Yeah, it was bad form. Sorry, Jason.
That's all right. I'll forgive you this time.
But we ended up being able to talk to him for, I don't know, like a good long while at the food conference. And so the Everything Food Conference that we went to. And it was super enlightening and super fun.
I had a good time too. You guys are very entertaining to talk to. It's nice having some other science food nerds to chat with.
Yes, we're not dry. So Jason, let's just jump in. Can you tell us how you actually got started with your website, or how you got started writing these books? Like, why did you even get interested in this?
It's a good question. So my background's in web development with a focus in fantasy sports. So I was doing that full
That's
time.
weird. Just making a comment.
Yeah. Normally what most food bloggers' backgrounds are in, I think. So I was interested in cooking, and I was getting a little more serious about it. And for my birthday, I got a copy of Thomas Keller's Under Pressure cookbook, which is all about sous vide cooking.
Oh.
And I got a sous vide machine to experiment with. And I was really excited to get started with it and read through the book and the recipes. And it was really confusing. It's Thomas Keller, and he's one of the best chefs in the world. So he talks
French
about
laundry.
roasting a chicken. It's confusing because it's, just many components to it and many different steps that you normally wouldn't do in a home kitchen. So I decided that I really wanted to figure out how to use the machine more. And I did a lot of research on the internet, and there's people talking about it, especially on the e-gullet threads, but there wasn't anything really kind of in one place or written in a non-scientific manner. And I was looking for some ways to kind of build some passive income in my spare time. And I thought, hey, why don't I start a food blog about it?
That's ambitious. I'm really impressed with that, actually. That is the fact that first of all, you found a niche. There was definitely a hole.
Yeah, I got pretty lucky with that.
Yeah, and it's kind of, so it really was, David Keller's book is very confusing then to a beginner.
Yeah, Thomas Keller's book.
Oh, sorry, Thomas Keller. I apologize.
That's all right. I'm sure he'll forgive you as well.
I hope so.
To be able to decipher that is amazing, because he is really intense from what I've seen and heard about him, and some of the books that I've read. He's very intense.
Yeah, his recipes in there were really good. And if you wanted to make that recipe, here's a real good recipe for it. But he didn't go into a lot of kind of the background for it. And there's a lot of information online from Nathan Miragold and Baldwin. They both did a whole lot of the pioneering work on the science behind it. But it was still understanding the pathogen curve and things like that really confusing. That's true even when you're roasting a chicken, but you don't talk about it or need to understand the pathogen curve to roast a chicken, to put it in 350 till it's done. And there's really no equivalent of that on the sous vide market. So I just decided to start writing it for what I wished that I knew when I got started. And apparently a lot of other people found use in that as well.
That is great. So you are kind of got your foot in the door because of trying to sous vide something.
Yep.
And then, but this is not your only book that you've written. So did you just kind of get deeper and deeper into all of this?
Yeah, I did. I think 4 books on sous vide. And then I was like, I've kind of done a lot of writing about sous vide over the last 4 or 5 years. And, sous vide's really a part of the new movement of modernist cooking and a lot of what the fancier restaurants are doing with the spherification and gelling and foams and all that kind of bizarre stuff. So I thought that's also something that seems really confusing and the more I looked into it, it turns out that it's really simple as well in a lot of the cases. Like, so I started writing, taking recipes that, like, at Alinea, at the really fancy restaurant, they might make a oyster stock that they reduce down to a consomme and then turn that into a foam. Like, and it takes 5 hours. But you can also, like, take soy sauce and turn it into the same foam, and it takes you 5 minutes. And all your friends are like, "What did you just make? That's amazing!" And they think you spent hours on it, and it really took you no time at all.
That's awesome. So we're going to address this in another episode, but very, very briefly, could you tell us what sous vide means, what it is?
Yeah, so the best way to describe sous vide is that it's very precise, low temperature cooking. So if you're cooking something on a grill, say you want to cook a steak to medium rare, that's normally like around 130 degrees. And so you throw this piece of meat on a 400 or 500 or 600 degree grill, and you try to pull it off at the exact moment that the middle hits 130 degrees. And if you pull it off too early, it's raw. If you pull it off too late, it's burned. And so you have this really small margin of error. What you do with sous vide is you basically cook it at the temperature you're going to want to eat it at. So you cook it at 130 degrees. You're guaranteed that it's going to be perfectly cooked all the way through. And then you can sear it really briefly at the end, and you have this incredibly moist, juicy food with minimal effort.
And it's medium rare. That's kind of the key. I think that's pretty awesome, because I have had many I ordered a medium rare steak and got something that was definitely not medium rare.
Yeah, it's all guesswork.
Yeah.
I love it for parties too, because you can do, like, my biggest fear is, like, you have 10 people over and you cook chicken breasts on the grill, and you're like, am I going to kill one of my friends or neighbors by undercooking chicken breast?
That would be bad.
Yeah.
They'll never come back.
Yeah. So
remember that time?
We really miss Johnny. I wish he was still with us. So with sous vide, you can cook it at like 145 degrees till it's pasteurized, and then you can wait until people come over and throw it on the grill just to sear it at the end, and you are guaranteed that the food's perfectly cooked and no one's going to get sick. And you're also, what I tend to do if I'm grilling is I leave it on too long because I don't want to make anyone sick, so I overcook everything.
Yeah, and then it just ends up dry and not wonderful anymore.
Yeah. So if you get into sous vide, you'll get a lot of comments from, like, friends and family of, like, this is the best chicken breasts I've ever had. You're like, thanks. It took me like 5 minutes of active time to actually do that, but I'm glad you really like it. You can see most of my cookings around impressing my friends with expending as little energy as possible.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Like, we get great joy in, like, cooking something and, like, look what I made. And then if you can say, oh, it didn't take anything at all. I mean, how awesome would that be?
Yeah.
Seriously.
So awesome. Okay, well, let's move into a little bit more about infusions, because this is a kind of a fun, sciencey type of a topic. Can you kind of break down for us the different types of infusions, or how one would go about doing an infusion? So, like, in your book, Infusions, you talk about 3 different types specifically. Do you want to go into those?
Yeah, sure. So the way infusions have traditionally been done, and infusions are anything at its most basic. Infusion is when you combine a liquid and a food, and the flavors between the two meld into one another. So, like, limoncello is a classic Italian infusion that you put lemon peels in vodka or in a clear spirit and let it sit in the cupboard for 3 weeks, and alcohol pulls out all the flavor from the lemon, and you can turn that into a drink. Other infusions are like teas or coffee. Iced tea is a great infusion that most people are, familiar with. And a lot of sodas are also traditional infusions.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wait, really?
Root beer.
Wait, what? Okay,
you can look in my book. I have a root beer infusion.
I did see that, but I think I'm a little slow about. So wait, what's the thing that what's in root beer that creates that is being infused, I guess?
Yeah, there's a lot of different kind of random ingredients in it, like birch bark and wintergreen and sarsaparilla and fun things like that you have to order from, like, specialty shops. But it's fantastic to, like, make your own root beer. And one of the things that I like, because I don't drink much soda, but when I do, I always try to get root beer. But I don't like all the sugar in it. So you can make your own root beer, and you can just infuse it in water or just put in a tad of sugar. So you can really control the level. So it's not this, like, syrupy, overly sweet drink. You can do it that it's basically calorie free if you want, and just put a little on with some club soda and keep it in the fridge.
That sounds lovely. I love root beer. I think that's probably one of my favorite drinks that I order. And so to say that I can make my own root beer, I know people do that, but I've always never really understood it. I always thought it was a syrup that you bought.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting reading some of the history about like birch beer and sarsaparilla and root beer and just kind of how they came about. And it was interesting. I just assumed that it was all artificial, crud that they put together in a factory. And I'm sure that's the way some unnamed large brands still do it. But traditionally, it's been around since the 1800s, and they used to get bark and boil water.
Really?
Yeah.
And like when you say birch beer,
Yeah,
that's like from the birch bark?
Yeah, like I had to do a little bit of digging, because some of the recipes were like, well, you go to your birch tree and then you take bark off of it. And I was like, that's a little too from scratch for what I'm looking for, but
that's intense.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I'm looking at Sharon. I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah, there's probably my favorite part of writing the book. I was like, whoa, I can make soda at home and root beer, and had no idea how. Couldn't have told you one ingredient in it before, but it's good. I recommend it.
Awesome. Yeah, that kind of puts a new twist on like growing your own food and gardening and things like that. Like
Yeah.
raising birch trees in the backyard so you can have root beer.
I got to cut off a little bit of that birch bark really fast. Excuse me while I go into the backyard. Okay, so there's kind of those traditional infusions. Sorry, I interrupted you because I was a little blown away about the root beer thing. So I'll let you continue on. Sorry about that.
So that's the way you use to make infusions, the traditional way. If you take a liquid in a food and you sit in the cupboard for 2 to 3 days or months, depending what you're making, and then you strain it and drink it. So with sous vide, you can put it in like a mason jar and then heat it up, and it makes the process go a whole lot faster. You can make most of the infusions in like 2 to 4 hours instead of 2 to 4 days or several months.
So right now I'm making vanilla in my cupboard.
Nice.
Could I do that in a few hours instead of like the 2 months or something that it recommends?
Yep. Yeah, the sous vide most things can be done in the sous vide because it's a sealed environment. You're not, if you just did it on the stove, you'd be evaporating all of the aromatics and essential oils would be leaving the liquid. But contained in the mason jar, a lot of the stuff stays in it. And your resulting infusion will be slightly different than your traditional infusion, but a lot of times it's a little bit deeper and fuller than a traditional infusion would be, which can be good or bad.
Why is that, Jason?
Because the temperature brings out different flavor profiles from the ingredients. So if you know anyone that's a really big tea lover, they'll tell you that like you don't use boiling water on green tea. You want it to be 200 degrees or 180 degrees because otherwise you get bitter components coming out. And there's all these real tea lovers get into these discussions about what's the proper temperature for tea. And that's because different aromatics and different flavors come out at different temperatures more quickly. So if you heat it up, you're getting out a lot of the more bitter and like tannin notes of stuff comes out faster at higher temperatures. So they tend to take on a little more of that kind of more full-bodied flavor than something that was done at room temperature or a lighter temperature.
Which is, I think, a huge reason why there's a lot of people out there that say that they don't like tea is because they've only had it where somebody's boiled water and poured it over tea leaves or a tea packet, and it's kind of scorching it and making it bitter.
Yeah, I just saw a nice breakdown of someone cooked tea in sous vide at like eight or nine different temperatures and to see which one was the perfect temperature they liked, which was interesting. But
I totally want to see that graph now. So because it's in a closed, because the sous vide setup usually is a closed system, whether it's in a mason jar, correct? If you're, I know your sous vide cooking, you usually have it in like some sort of, almost like a Ziploc bag, right? Kind of a vacuum sealed type of a bag.
Yeah,
so,
I do most of mine in Ziploc freezer bags.
Okay.
But yeah, so because it's sealed, it keeps in all those aromatics.
And then so if Sharon is wanting to compare, I'm actually curious now, maybe Sharon should do this as an experiment. Maybe she should try making some vanilla in a sous vide situation and compare it to what she has sitting in her cupboard right now. Because how long has that been going in your cupboard currently, Sharon?
6 months now.
Ooh.
This is my third batch.
Interesting.
The first one was terrible. The
I've
second
heard that
one,
it's really hard to make vanilla.
I mean, it's not that. It depends. So I have thought it depends on the beans mostly,
Right.
because the beans that I had at first were kind of dried out, but I didn't really realize that because I haven't worked with vanilla beans a ton. It was quite disgusting. I almost poisoned my friend because I was going to give it to her for a Christmas present. And then as I'm pouring it into the cute little collectible bottle that I bought for her, I decided to taste it and it was so gross.
Oh.
So I had to tell her, hey, I'm going to try another batch. And so whenever you come back from New Mexico, I might have some vanilla for you. So I made a second batch and it was okay. But I based that with I used a bourbon base. And so this one is a vodka base and I like it a lot better. It just tastes a lot cleaner. But I still want the bourbon for the richness. So I need to experiment around, I think, with that liquid. I'm not sure. But I am curious and I'm totally, because I see that I can make this. I'm going to try a sous vide infusion with the vanilla and see what the difference is.
Yeah, I'd be really curious to hear. I didn't do too many, one-to-one comparisons between them, but I'd be interested to see how it compares and how it turns out.
So Jason, because the sous vide infusions, are there any particular disadvantages to using that versus a traditional infusion? Just like I said, like you had mentioned earlier, having it sit in the cupboard for 3 to 4 weeks or whatever. When would you personally use a sous vide infusion versus a traditional one?
I almost always use the sous vide ones just because I tend to not plan ahead 3 to 4 weeks. But the traditional ones are a little more well-rounded, I think, a little more balanced. And some of the ingredients like alcohol and vinegar tend to mellow a little bit over time when they're in the cupboard with the ingredients with them, where the sous vide ones, and when we talk about the whipping siphon ones next, they come out really, they're not mellow at all.
So they've got a little bit more of a bite to them, almost.
Definitely.
But I think that could be an advantage depending on what recipe you're using it in, right?
Yep.
Oh, I agree.
And how you're accessing it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, can we move on to whipping siphons? Because I just need to pick your brain about this a lot. Because it's just blowing my mind.
Yeah, so the traditional infusions were out there, and so I was like, what if we just heat this up and it'll go faster? Which, to me, logically, I could see where they made that jump. The whipping siphon infusions are a whole different kind of beast. They're really interesting. I'm not sure who first did it, but I know Dave Arnold was the first person that came up with really popularizing and wrote about it a whole lot. And he was at the French Culinary Institute, I believe. And so the whipping siphon, for those of you that don't know, if you've ever seen the Ready Whip or the disposable whipped cream dispenser you can buy at the store that you can spray into your mouth, at parties, it's basically an industrial high-class version of one of those. So originally they were in restaurants because they would make whipped cream for desserts and they needed it to be fresh for 6 hours while the restaurant was open. So they could use a whipping siphon. To make whipped cream, you just put cream in there, screw the top on, and then you charge it with nitrous. And when you pull the handle, whipped cream comes out.
Sharon's looking a little shocked right now. She's like, what the heck are you talking about?
Sorry.
So I'm trying to picture it in my head, and I have to admit that I didn't Google any images here.
Oh,
but as you're describing this, it sounds a lot like the same thing that we used to do cryo freezing in the clinic that I used to work at, where you would freeze off a mole.
Yeah, it's probably pretty close to that.
That was a little graphic, Sharon.
I'm just saying.
I don't know if I'd bring that up when you show it to your friends. You can also use this for mole removal after we're done eating this whipped cream.
Yeah, it's your parlor tricks. Party games after you eat, then we'll remove mole.
But you guys will definitely have to have a link to an image of it in the show notes.
Yeah, so I actually did. I did look it up, and this is what it looks like to me. It looks like a little metal canister that, like you said, looks like a whipped cream canister. And on the top, it looks like it has bunny ears or TV antenna. So there's one thing that goes out to one side. And I think that's where you screw in the nitrous cartridges. Is that right?
Right.
And then the other thing is like a release valve. Is that correct? It's kind of got this little handle to it as well.
Yeah, it's the nozzle, and when you pull that handle, whatever is inside comes flying out of it.
Oh, yes. Oh, and that's why if you want whipped cream, you turn it upside down. But if you want to vent something in like an infusion, then you kind of tip it upwards, right? To vent the air out. I mean, the nitrogen out. Is that about right?
Yep, is correct.
Okay, so because that was probably not super clear, I'll let you describe a little bit more about how you actually create an infusion using a whipping siphon.
So the whole background of whipping siphons are you put in a liquid and then you fill it with nitrous, which permeates the liquid. And then when you release it quickly, the nitrous comes out of the liquid and it creates a foam or a whipped cream or just any type of foam like that. So what they found was that if you put a liquid in there with like spices, and then when you charge it, all the nitrous shoves everything into the pores of the spice that's in there. And when you release it, it comes flying out and it kind of rips. This is probably not a scientific description, but it like rips all the flavor and aromatics and essential oils out of the spice. So for something like an infusion, you can, that same limoncello that might have taken you, say a week or two or a month or two in your cupboard, you can do with a few hours in sous vide. And in the whipping siphon, it'll take you about 2 minutes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And awesome.
So is there a particular technique that you use that, like when you say you can do it in a couple minutes, do you do let it sit? And are there times when you would maybe let it sit longer to maybe get more flavor?
Yeah, for some things, like especially if I'm making like root beer in my whipping siphon, I let it sit for a little bit longer. But in general, most things are 1 to 3 minutes is the ideal range. And it's just, I wish I could say like there's some really, I discovered some awesome technique that makes it easy, but it's literally like you pour a liquid in, throw in like a cup of spices, and then seal it, charge it, let it sit for 3 minutes, vent it, and open it, and you're basically done. Like it's the easiest thing that I've ever written about, and I wish I could make it seem more difficult, but it's really pretty easy.
So when you say when you say that you put in a cup of spices, are we talking about what's the liquid proportion? How much liquid are we talking about?
So I normally would put in, depends what size of siphon you're using, but it's for every, say, 2 cups of liquid, you probably use like half a cup of like spices or herbs, vegetables or fruit or whatever you're wanting to extract flavor from. And for like more stronger spices, you might use a little bit less, but it's in that range will get you, depending how strong you want the flavor to come through in it.
So would you say that's more herbs and spices or vegetables or fruit, whatever it happens to be, than in a traditional infusion or a sous vide one? That seems a little bit more than I would probably put in.
Yeah, you generally need to use a little bit more, and I might be overestimating. I haven't done a new infusion in a little bit. I've been still going through the ones in my book again. In my book, I give a good recommendation for the specific number of what you normally do, but you do need to use a little bit more. The whipping siphon infusions are less full-bodied, and it doesn't extract as much flavor as the other methods. But it does tend to extract the aromatics and the lighter notes a lot better than the bitter notes, which can really help make some unique infusions that you couldn't make using the other methods.
So wait, let me think. Sorry. So why would I use the whipping siphon? I know time is obviously one of our major things. So I would probably be using the whipping siphon if I really wanted just to get kind of some lighter aromatic flavors. Is that what you're saying? Would be a good option to do?
Yeah, the lighter aromatic flavors are real good. The time is a big benefit. And compared to sous vide, you're not heating anything. So everything is still in its natural uncooked state. So if you're doing apples, you're going to get more of that fresh apple flavor, where sous vide, you'd have a little bit more of that cooked or baked apple flavor in it.
Oh, yeah. And that actually, baked and raw apple are very different flavors, I think.
Yep.
So what's the funnest thing that you've put into the whipping siphon?
I like doing barrel-aged Manhattans in it. That's one of my favorites. You can get these like wine aging cubes from like beer stores or winemaking stores, and you can put a few of those in, make a Manhattan cocktail or a Caprini, like any type of cocktail you like, pour it in there, same process, normally like 2 to 5 minutes probably. And then you have a barrel aged or nitrous oaked, I guess is the proper phrasing on it, Manhattan. And
so
it's
Jason, this is Winter, and I don't really drink. I don't drink actually. So I am a little puzzled by this. So you're actually putting pieces of like wood?
Yeah. So one of the big things that, like, when you make bourbon, you take basically like moonshine and you put it in an oak barrel and let it sit for 4 to 20 years, basically. So one of the things that people have been doing lately is they take old barrels and they'll put cocktails in it and let it sit in used bourbon barrels or whiskey or scotch barrels to absorb some of the flavor and mellow the alcohol. And so you can do the same type of thing using your whipping siphon in a few minutes when you just need a hit of some barrel aging for that night.
Which is so tasty. This is Sharon, and I do drink. That's my disclaimer. But I don't know if you can get, so are they just cubed? Like just somebody cut up a barrel and they're cubes that you can get for them? Because I don't know if they're available here in Utah. Because everything's so regulated.
Yeah, there's a surprisingly large number of options for getting wood into your various drinks. But I've done cubes, there's staves. Like, you can buy them off of Amazon. I think Jack Daniel's sells old barrels, and most like home brewing websites, or even if you have any stores that do like beer making, you should be able to buy them from there. They're surprisingly common. Especially online.
Interesting. I think I'm going to have to check that out. There's not a lot of brewing stores here. I mean, you could visit the distillery and try to finagle a barrel from them, but I doubt that would happen.
I bet they have something. I think there's a couple of stores around that you could check out, Sharon.
And Amazon has it, like, it's all on there for like $5, and they're just like little cubes, and you can get, you want a medium toast or a dark toast on, what type of barrel it was, and it's pretty interesting. People that have like really refined palates can have written about the difference. Use like a port barrel versus a bourbon barrel and the different flavor nuances that it can introduce to the system.
I'm so excited to try an experiment with that.
This is so fascinating to me too. I'm like, so it's basically that nitrogen is forcing the alcohol into the wood, which is a porous substance, and pulling it straight out when you release that valve. Yeah. And it's pulling those flavors or whatever kind of residual alcohol or anything that might be in that wood out. Is that right?
That's correct.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, and it works the same way with, any hardwood spices too, like cinnamon sticks and, star anise, and some of those like more thick spices also pulls out a lot of really good flavor from them.
What are those like when you take them out of the whipping siphon once you're done? Like, are they all shriveled up? Are they harder?
For the bark, it basically looks like wet bark. And that's about it. Like, it's for the wood and the hard spices, it doesn't really change. Some of the more delicate herbs, like mint or basil, can sometimes get bruised. And if you put in stuff like strawberries, like, they can just come out as mushy sometimes.
Okay.
And then when you release the nitrogen off and open it up, do you just, I'm assuming you just strain everything off and then go ahead and let it sit, or do you serve it right away?
It's generally best to let it sit for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. There is still residual nitrogen in there that's bubbling out. And so it's still infusing a little bit of the flavor, and then strain it, and it's normally good to go right away. Let an alcohol can sit for like maybe another 8 to 10 minutes, and it kind of mellows the flavors and rounds it out a little bit. But you can use it right away if you really need to drink that cocktail right away. We've all been there. I know what that's like.
Okay, so other than cocktails, what else are you using the whipping siphon for?
So I make a lot of infused vinegars in it. They're fantastic if you like for vinaigrettes or for drizzles on sauces. You can make, you can get a like raspberry vinaigrette at a nice grocery store, or a nice, at Whole Foods or something for $10 or $12 probably. You can make your own for $4, and it takes, especially with the whipping siphon, it's only going to take 5 minutes of time. So I make a lot of those. I really like infused oils, just like rosemary infused or chili pepper infused oils and vinegars. There's a lot of different creams you can make, which are really good if you're doing like panna cotta or flans.
Oh, you said dessert.
That got our attention.
So with the nitrogen cartridges, Are there a specific number that you have to use, or is it just like, oh yeah, each of them usually takes a couple of them?
You normally use 1 to 3 depending on the size of your siphon. And if you're trying to replicate the exact same recipe time and time again, the pressure actually is really important to use the exact right pressure. So if you're working at a fancy cocktail bar where you're doing this and serving it to customers, you'd want to make sure you have the same size siphon, the same amount of ingredients, and the same amount of cartridges going in every time when you're developing your recipe. For someone like me that doesn't necessarily have a great palate, it doesn't overly matter too much. It tastes really good either way.
What do you mean you don't have a good palate?
My palate's very, very poor. It's I don't get a lot of the nuances in various things.
Okay, so just a quick, I just need because I would like to try some infusions for the home cook. Can you give me, so obviously traditional infusions, you really just need a jar, whatever your fluid is and whatever your herbs or spices that you want to do. So that should be that's an easy way to get your foot in the door to do an infusion. How about like a sous vide machine? Let's talk about how much that costs, and let's talk about a whipping siphon. How much do those usually run?
Okay, so for sous vide, one of the nice things in general, sous vide is like really precise cooking. And so there's machines that are like $150, $200 to do them. And when you're cooking a steak, if it's 4 degrees too low, it's not safe to cook it at that temperature. So it has to be really precise. For infusions, it really doesn't matter. There will be a slight variation, but if you want to try sous vide infusions and you have a thermometer, like a candy thermometer, heat up a pot of water on your stove to like 165 and put in the infusion and let it go for a few hours, then pull it off. It'll be fluctuating like 5 to 10 degrees, and that's really not going to make a big enough difference that you can't enjoy it and experiment with it at home.
That's not bad then. I think everybody has a pot and possibly a thermometer at home.
And if you want to get like really crazy, the most dishwashers are around 170 degrees, I think, when they cook. So you can just put your mason infusion in a mason jar and stick it in the top rack of your dishwasher, and you can do some sous vide infusions that way while you're cleaning your dishes.
That's awesome.
I'm totally making sous vide vanilla now in my dishwasher. That is awesome. Okay, I really we probably have to figure out what the temperature is to our dishwasher is though, probably, right?
Yeah, because some of them do like super high heat, and you don't want to necessarily like explode a mason jar in your
so
your
don't
dishwasher.
sanitize the dishes is what you're saying.
Definitely.
Not that cycle.
And for a whipping siphon, you would need to buy a whipping siphon. You can get some of the less expensive ones for around $40 to $50, and then the nicer stainless steel ones are normally, I think, $80 to $150, depending on the size and the current sale on them.
That's not terrible. Yeah.
I think that's totally doable if you are into this. Like if you are really into kind of making everything have different notes, aromatic notes, or I'm just thinking of all the cool vegetables you can infuse.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. And I did a ton of recipe testing, and there's only so much infused alcohols one man can drink on his own. So I had my good friend, Dan Jefferson, came over, and we do a ton of recipe testing together. And about midway through the testing, he ended up buying his own whipping siphon because he loved doing the syrups and the root beer and the cocktails, and he thought it was great. So after doing a few, he at least thought it was worth purchasing a siphon of his own.
That's awesome. That wasn't a drunk purchase on Amazon, was it?
No, it wasn't. That was
all right. It's legit.
Yep. It wasn't at the end of one of the testing nights. It was at the beginning.
Excellent. So what's your cooking philosophy?
My general goal is to, at least when it comes to my website and my books, I try to take concepts that seem really intimidating and aren't explained well, and I try to kind of break it down so the home cook can understand it. In my mind, I'm always writing my recipes for my mother-in-law. She'll follow recipes and she'll do some adventurous things as long as there's a recipe for it. And so I try to write it so that if she wanted to do it, she could follow the recipe and understand it.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
I appreciate that because I sometimes when I'm reading a cookbook, there's definitely cookbooks that I have that I've given away because they're not talking to me. I'm just not clicking with them, or they're talking a little too above me, because there are some very talented cooks and chefs out there, but I'm just not getting it, I guess. So I appreciate it. And like, as I was going through your book, your Infusions book, I loved it because I was like, I get it. This is awesome. Like it was great. So I just a plug for you on that. I loved reading it. It was interesting, easy. And I was like, it's chock full of recipes. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was really easy to understand. So I loved it for that and for all of the background that you give on a lot of these recipes too.
I appreciate it. And Winter, since you don't drink alcohol, don't forget that you can make, if you like sodas at all, most of the alcohol recipes you could make using water and then put a little bit of sugar in there, and you could do syrup sodas off of almost all of the alcohol recipes with no alcohol in them.
Just straight water.
Yeah, I have a few recipes in there for like doing some different, some broths. Like I do a fruit salad broth that you can use as like a chilled soup. It's a great spring, summer soup. So you can look at some of the timings on those and put in whatever flavor combinations you like from some of the alcohol ones. And most of them should turn out well.
That sounds lovely. A chilled fruit soup. I'm going to try that.
I was pleased with that one.
I just have a quick question. I've heard that bacon... I've seen some people do a strip of crispy bacon in some bourbon. Does that sound right? Could you do that as an infusion? I'm just curious. Like, would you stick in a piece of like crispy bacon?
Yeah, I have. So I have a recipe for bacon broth. Speaking of water-based ones, that you can infuse broth with bacon, which is really good. It's hard to actually cook with it because I generally just want to drink it straight. But I also have a recipe for fat washed bourbon in the book. I'm not sure if you've ever done any fat washing before.
No, can you tell me what fat washing is?
Yeah, so fat washing is pretty cool. I think Dave Arnold might have done that one too. If you're really interested in crazy cocktail recipes, his book Liquid Intelligence, it's fascinating. And I met him at the Museum of Food and Drink in Brooklyn, and he's just an intense, really nice, awesome guy, considering he is like pioneering in the areas of cocktail making. But to fat wash something, you take a mason jar of bourbon, you cook up some bacon, and you dump it into the bourbon. Then you throw it in the freezer for a few days, and then you strain it out. All the fat from the bacon fat congeals, hardens, so it strains out of the liquid, and then you have bacon infused bourbon at the end of it.
So you freeze it, and then are you letting it thaw?
No, you just strain it when it's, because the alcohol doesn't freeze, just the fat does. Okay. Yeah, I have 2 or 3 fat washing recipes in the book, so you can check that out. I think they're also on my website. If any of the listeners want to see some of these recipes, like on my website, I have probably 30 of them on there, so you can get a good feel for what they are and my writing style and what the pictures look like and that type of stuff.
Jason, and tell us again what your website is.
It's Amazing Food Made Easy.
AmazingFoodMadeEasy.com. That's awesome. Yeah, it really is. And it's nice and it's easily, you can navigate it pretty easily. So I really enjoyed it. Looking through it, I was like, this is so fun. Okay, well, Jason, we totally want to say thank you for coming on our podcast today and chatting with us about infusions. I feel like I need to go make some awesome sodas now.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. I had a great time.
Okay, so Jason has graciously agreed to give, we're doing a giveaway. If you give us a review and a rating on iTunes, then Jason will choose his 3 favorite comments, and we're going to be giving away a book of the Infusions book, and then another winner will get the whipping siphon, and that one is very specific just to the whipping siphon, and then also his book Getting Started in Modernist Cooking. And those have been super fun to go through, and we're excited for you. So if you do leave a rating and review on iTunes for our podcast, that's totally going to help other people find us, and also to get people over to Jason's website. It's pretty awesome. Go check it out. He has a ton of reviews for the equipment that he uses and a lot of recipes and everything. So jump over to amazingfoodmadeeasy.com and check it out there.
Thanks for joining us today. Thank you, Jason, for joining us. We loved it. It's been very informative.
We appreciate it so much. See you later.
Bye.
Our podcast is brought to you by our awesome and food-loving sponsors. We're having swag bag giveaway. So if you leave a swag box giveaway, thank you for keeping me honest. If you leave us an iTunes rating and review, you'll be entered to win one of 10 swag bags full of some awesome goodies that we're going to be talking about.
Yay!
our first sponsor is Clear, the Clear company who make Light and Sweet.
Yay! Have you guys ever used Light and Sweet before?
Yes.
Yeah, it's awesome. So what Light and Sweet is, it's a sweetener that's a blend of erythritol and xylitol. And it's just a natural sweetener that is made from plant sources. And it's awesome because it is just a lower calorie sweetener. It has 0 net carbs, lower glycemic index. It's pretty awesome. And I've made stuff with it and it's great. And you couldn't tell a difference.
No, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good. It's not like stevia where the stevia is super, super sweet. This tastes like sugar.
Yeah. And it's nice because you can just, when you're baking, for example, it's just a 1-to-1 ratio. I mean, like you can just replace it 1-to-1. It's really handy that way because sometimes there's like tweaking when you do some other sweeteners, different sweeteners that you may want to use. So this one is pretty nice that you can just go straight.
Nice.
I know, it's awesome. And they have been so generous to donate these 1-pound bags of their Light and Sweet. So you guys can try it out yourselves in your homes if you are a winner of our swag box giveaway, of course. So, but Sharon, they've been very generous.
They have been very generous.
They have actually offered a coupon code for our listeners only. And if you go to clear.com, and that's XLEAR.com, and if you enter the code HUNGRY10, and hungry is all uppercase, you're going to get 10% off any of their stuff on their site. And that includes, their spry gum and their Light and Sweet sweeteners, or heck, if you want to go in, look at some of their other products like their nasal sprays and that type of thing, that works too. So they've been really super generous and we're excited to work with them.
Thanks, Claire.
Yes.
Our next sponsor is Smith's Food and Drug.
Woohoo! Sharon.
Yesterday I went to the grand opening of Smith's at Daybreak in South Jordan, Utah.
Oh my goodness, how was it?
It was so cool.
I was a little jealous when you told me you got to go because I was not able to go.
Yeah, we were going to go together, but that didn't really work out. But it was so cool. They have tons of things. There's a Starbucks there in the store. They've got a deli. They've got this awesome meat counter. It's huge. They have a grilling station there where you can, like, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., they will grill up some meat so you can try the meat.
What are you talking about? Are you serious?
Yes.
That
so
is
cool.
Awesome.
I met the meat department manager. His name is Jesse. Hello, Jesse. And he was very informative, very kind, and really helpful. Said that they've got some marinades there that are available for purchase. And so they'll try them out on the meat and grill up the meat for you so you can try the marinade.
That is really awesome.
And
I've
they'll
never
even
heard of that
marinate
before.
the meat for you if you would like. If you're buying it from them, they'll put it in a marinade for you.
What?
If you say that, so if Jesse's working there or you say, hey, Jesse told me that this was okay, he's like, we'll just do it. They'll grill it for you.
What?
It does need to be cooked to at least a medium well.
Right.
So if you,
according to,
right, food handling standards,
Yes.
whatever, they're not going to get you sick. But so if you like a rarer steak, that might
You're
not
gonna
be
have
a good idea,
gonna
but
have to
they
do it
will
yourself.
grill the meat for you.
That is really cool.
Yeah. So
What else
really
did you
cool.
What else did you get to try while you were there?
We got to try a lot of the private selection stuff.
Oh my gosh, I love all the private selection brands.
So
stuff.
they had private selection. They had some really good artisan breads, like these yummy sourdoughs and crusty baguettes and stuff like that. They were really good. They had some great dipping oils for them that were also private selection olive oils that were infused, really yummy, and different spices that were added to the olive oils as well.
Oh my gosh,
Also private selection spices.
that is awesome. They have been really generous actually
Yeah.
in working with us, and we're excited to work with us.
They gave us a whole bunch of loose leaf tea for you guys. So whoever wins a swag box is going to get some yummy loose leaf tea.
Yay.
They've got a whole bunch of different kinds. I think they have 6 or 8 varieties.
Yeah.
They've got a bunch and they're really super good. But
And-
yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful Smith's Marketplace down in Daybreak, the Daybreak community in South Jordan. So go and check them out. They have lots of really good deals going on right now.
Yeah. Go check them out. We love Smiths and we love working with them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's have a food fight.
Food fight, food fight, food fight, food fight. It's winter.
This is the segment where you can email us with your relationship questions relating to food. You can email us at hungrysquared@gmail.com.
Disclaimer, we are in no way professional relationship experts, but you should totally listen to us anyway. If you need professional help, please seek it out.
Food fight, food fight, food fight. The food fight segment of the show. Here we go.
So, today's question. I love this question.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
tell me. I haven't.
It's
let's
cracking
hear it,
up
let's
when
hear
I
it.
read it. I was cracking up when I
Okay,
read the email.
Let's hear it.
So,
As she cracks up some more.
yeah. Okay. It's, how do you deal with someone in your kitchen who won't listen to you and then blows stuff up and makes a mess?
Oh, dang.
I.e., that chocolate is too hot to dip the balloons in for the chocolate bowls. Oh, look, the balloon popped and now there's burnt chocolate splattered all over my kitchen.
Oh.
Signed, I'm not always right, but I do know this.
That is awesome.
It sounds like an actual experience.
Yeah, and I just saw that, like, I just had this vision of what had happened, and I can see like splatters on the ceiling and on the walls and all over the place, and I feel bad for you. I'm sorry about that. Gosh, what do you do when you see a Pinterest fail happening or
What
about
do
to
you
happen?
do? Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see. Well, okay, so if that happened with Lee, for example, if we were doing that in the kitchen, I would probably say, stop it. This is going to happen. I can see it happening. Don't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's Lee, and we have a pretty good relationship. I mean, we're pretty tight.
Yeah.
You know, we're married.
Well, and you guys cook a lot together.
Yeah.
You already agree that one's the chef, one's the sous chef when you
Yeah.
cook together.
Yeah. So I think, Sharon, I'm just going to say that I think it depends on who the person is.
Yeah. I mean, because I don't know, if it were me and if I was saying, hey, that's too hot. Hey, turn it down. Hey, don't do that or whatever. And they weren't paying attention to me. I might say I told you so once that happened. I'm just saying.
So you can be a jerk about it, huh?
It would be awfully tempting, especially if it's your place and you're like, hey man, stop ruining my stuff with your Pinterest idea. I mean, I can see how chocolate bowls would be really cute.
It'd be
especially
cute
for like Easter time or like, I don't know.
Cute. Oh, I was going to say,
have
I was
cute
going to
little
say
bowls.
dessert bowl.
Valentine's.
I
Ooh,
was
a dessert bowl.
like, put some ice cream in that.
Yeah.
Sounds delicious.
Super cute. But then if you're burning chocolate and the burnt chocolate is on stuff, that is a big cleanup.
Yeah, because there's a lot. That stuff is oily, depending on what type of chocolate, and it can it can stain stuff if you're
Also,
so if you're not
depending on
careful.
what type of chocolate and what you've put in it. Yeah,
Mhm.
sure.
I
think you can also take the high road with that one though, because it depends on the person. It depends on your relationship, but also like you could just laugh.
Yeah.
And laugh a lot.
Yeah. Because I think that would be kind of funny. Because then you could be like, you remember
And
that
then
time
salvage whatever chocolate you can and eat it.
Go
right
find-
then and there as you watch it drip down your wall.
Yeah. Or you can just start, go find yourself a graham cracker and start scooping it off the wall and eating that.
Right. Because
Well, I guess it's
burnt
burnt.
chocolate.
Mm.
Well, we eat burned marshmallows.
Well, I don't know.
Well, if the caramelization factor is a little bit different,
It
so it
is.
might be really bitter and gross.
Yeah, that might not be awesome. I think it would depend on the person, because if it was somebody I was trying to impress, like maybe this is somebody that was like, I've asked this person out on a date and we were going to cook something and I'm trying to impress this.
And they feel bad for saying anything to them. Like, I know you're not doing that right.
Yeah. Because what if that person's just kind of a hot mess in the kitchen anyway, and you know it's happening?
Oh.
But you're trying to impress them. I don't know. That's tricky, because I would probably not say anything and just be like, oh, dang. And then like,
Who
oh, well.
saw that coming? Just play dumb.
You could do that. Or yeah, if you're trying to impress somebody, I would just be like, just laugh it off and clean it up and let it go. But if it's somebody that you're close to, I'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Don't you know that if it's too hot, it's going to cause the
Explosions.
elastic in the balloon to explode?
Yeah.
That's pretty rough.
That is rough. I'm sorry this happened. It sounds like it happened to you, dear. I'm not always right, but I do know this. I hope you handled it well. I think for us, it would depend on the situation, like who we were with. But I think either way, you can get mad or not, but you're going to have to clean it up anyway. And cooking should be fun. So take a deep breath and relax and just make this person clean up with you. Make it a group. I mean, if you're already in the kitchen together cooking and it's a group project, it's a group cleanup.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay. And before you clean up, this is what I need you to do. Pull out that phone and take a bunch of pictures and post it on that site.
Instagram the heck out of it and put it on Pinterest.
Yeah, there's like a Pinterest fail website, I think. So you can submit your stuff and you could be... Yeah.
You could be famous.
You could totally be famous. And it'll be funny. It'll be a funny story later after you've cleaned everything up.
After you've cleaned up and maybe like slept on it, you know, it'll be funny in the morning.
Yeah. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Cooking is messy sometimes.
Cooking is awfully
no matter
messy.
if you're doing everything right or if you're doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
It can be messy both ways.
Yeah, it's totally true. You can clean it up together. It's good. You be tight with that person. Just let it be.
Let it be.
Laugh and let it be.
Well, thanks for joining us today for our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com, on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and basically wherever you find your podcasts.
Yeah, you guys, we would love it if you could share our podcast with your food nerdy friends and family. I mean, people need to know about the food nerdery that's going on, and we would love to hear any sort of topic conversations that you would love to have. I think we've been getting some emails rolling in. Share with us some of your topics that you'd like us to talk about.
Please. We want to hear from you.
Yay. Okay, so join us next week for our next episode of Food Nerdery.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry Squared, yeah, Hungry Squared.